Tonight on the Fairfax Sports Report, we're going to have a smack-down good time. We're going to talk pro wrestling tonight with one of the top independent wrestlers in the country, and Julio Dinero. Man, you're going to learn a whole lot that you never thought you could see on that other show that's on right about now. Coming up next on the Fairfax Sports Report. Well, enough with the facetious remarks right here. I mean, this is actually very serious, folks. Well, in a way it is. We're talking professional wrestling tonight on the Fairfax Sports Report, once again with me, Julio Dinero, one of the top independent wrestlers in the world right now. Before we actually get to that as well, let's just give you a little bit of an idea of well, the type of work that this young man does with a very special music video. That's good work if you get it. All right. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, let's introduce to well, maybe a brand new audience out there, the Fairfax Sports Report, Mr. Julio Dinero. Well, Julio, I want to thank you very much for joining us right here. I mean, you're obviously a very busy man, and we're judging from that footage there. But that spans a great amount of time right there. So, but the first thing I want to ask, and I'm sure a lot of people are asking when they're looking at that video with the body slams, you jumping out of the ring and whatnot. Lord knows, why would you choose professional wrestling as a career?
I don't know if I had a choice, to be quite honest with you. Basically, at age 5 or 6 or so, I started watching the tube and seeing wrestling on TV on Saturday mornings, and it dawned on me like that. That's what I'm going to do, and I've strived to do that my whole life. Since first grade, people would ask me, what do you want to do when you get older? And some kids would say, I want to be a fireman, I want to be a policeman. I was like, I want to be a wrestler, and I knew it since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, so it's kind of just a dream come true pretty much.
What was it about it that drew you? I mean, everybody has a different aspect. I mean, you know, I personally like the athleticism, but some people like the drama that is there. They call it the male testosterone-laden soap opera sometimes. Right. But what was it about it that really turned you on, so to speak?
I mean, you're 5 years old. You watch cartoons. You watch you play things. You play Crash 'em Up Derby and everything. It had everything. It had drama in it. It had characters. It had sports. It had violence. It had pretty much everything that when I was younger that I would be interested in. And it so happens that all men seem to still be just grown-up boys, so there we go. Stuck with me.
And what a grown-up boy he is, folks. Well, I mean, just to give the folks an idea that you are, quote-unquote, a real athlete, as it were, even though, you know, there's that can be an oxymoron in itself. But you also wrestled and played football at right here, a local kid, Montgomery Blair.
Yeah, I wrestled since I was in 3rd grade at the Silver Spring Boys Club and worked my way up and played football in Silver Spring Boys Club, and for my 8th grade and 7th grade, I believe I played at St. Bernadette's, and that was my parochial school that I went to before high school. And I mean, I always played sports, but even if I didn't, being a professional wrestler is being a professional athlete. If I never played any sports, to be a professional wrestler, there's lots of guys that try and they do not get through school, or if they get through a school, they do not live through their first, year in the business, because if they're not good, they're not going to work. If they're not going to work, they got to find another way to make a living, or they're just, making it a hobby. But I make it a living. So if you're going to make a living at it, you got to be an athlete.
Like some of the better wrestlers in the business, you do have some quote unquote real wrestling experience.
Sure.
Where you did some amateur wrestling. What are some of the comparisons, if you could? I mean, if there's any such a thing.
The comparison is that there's more submission holds in pro wrestling, I guess, to an extent. You're not trying to, but you're trying to pin your opponent just like in amateur wrestling, and it gets down to the mat. Every now and then, we see us flying around and we punching and we're kicking. But when it comes down to it, you still got to pin somebody's shoulders to the mat, and that's pretty much where it is. And it's also the heart and the drive. I mean, anybody who's done amateur wrestling realizes that 6 minutes of hell, and pro wrestling is sometimes 20 minutes of hell. If you're in an Iron Man match, it's an hour of hell. I mean, it's not easy to do, and it really wears on you physically.
So at what point, now I know that I've talked to many professional wrestlers, and really that first day of wrestling school. Now, how did you even find the wrestling schools? Because when you started, about 4 or 5 years ago, right?
Yeah, I started in 1995, so let's say 7 years ago.
7 years ago. Time flies, man. Everybody in the studio is getting older except you. But that first day at the wrestling school, first of all, which wrestling school was it, and what was that first day like?
All right, there was the Monster Factory, which is where Bam and Bigelow came out of. So that was a big wrestling school back when I first started in the early 90s. They had a subsidiary in Baltimore called the Monster Factory Baltimore. I'd go to a few independent wrestling shows. So back then, the independents were unfortunately I think in my opinion, a lot worse than they are now as far as talent. So I went to a couple shows and I met some wrestlers who said they would train me. When I watched them wrestle, though I'd never done it before, I could see whether or not they were good or not. So it took me a while to find somebody to train me that I trusted. So I went to the it's the Monster Factory Baltimore Wrestling School, and I watched them actually train. And basically, I felt like they knew what they were doing from my perspective. And I went there, and the first day of wrestling school was not pretty, because at that point, once you've signed your contract, it says if you get hurt here, that's your life, and we're not going to be sued for it. The wrestlers that are already there want to make sure that they literally beat the living daylights out of you to see if you have the fortitude to actually keep going, because none of us want punks in the ring, you know what I'm saying? I mean, we don't want to break each other's teeth, but at the same time, we don't want guys that we don't respect on a physical level. So, I mean, they really whipped my butt, to be honest with you.
Punks translated meaning people who maybe not necessarily have the intestinal fortitude to be able to engage in such athletic activities. So just to soften things a little bit for those folks who might complain about such language being used here. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't mean people that like the Misfits or anything like that.
Now, I want to get into that a little bit more. I mean, and, again, you described beating you up. I mean, can you talk about the specifics? I mean, what kind of drills are we talking about?
Does anybody remember the Iron Sheik?
Of course.
Okay, he has a move called the camel clutch.
Yeah.
All right, well, this is a move where you lay the man down on his stomach, you pull his arms up over your knees, you reach down and you rear back on his chin. So obviously your back is bent a certain amount. Well, I didn't give up at first, because I wanted to show I was tough. So the man in the ring with me at that time was Axel Rotten, who was at that time in ECW, and he was considered one of the hardcore legends at that moment, or at least hardcore icons then. He reared back to the point where I could almost feel the back of my head touching his chest, if you can imagine that. He's sitting on my lower back. And, I mean, besides that, I mean, every time they hit you with a clothesline or a kick or a punch or a forearm, they gave it to you full force. Because if you didn't have the guts to keep coming back, they didn't want you there. I already signed the contract, so if they hurt me, they hurt me. They didn't drop me on my head. They didn't try to, like, break my nose necessarily, but when they laid something in, I mean, they gave it to you as hard as they could, it felt like, and it definitely gave you respect for what goes on in the ring, because when you watch it, it looks like it's choreographed, it looks like it's easy, it looks like these guys are just having a good time, but the reality is it really hurts. And you got to gain a threshold of pain and have it grow so you can get used to it.
Did you ever go back to that moment where you were 5 years old and thinking that, okay, this is what I wanted to do? Did you ever doubt that at that point?
Nah, I always knew it. I didn't care. They could have broken my leg. There was a story that Hulk Hogan got his leg broken his first day of wrestling school, and he stuck with it, and look at him now. So, I mean, if you want to do something, you're going to do it, I mean, all athletes get injured, and hopefully they're not career-ending injuries, and you go right back. You fall off a horse, you jump back on it. You fall off your motorcycle, you get back on it.
I know. I've talked with plenty of wrestlers who have always had that one mentor, usually somebody you may have that first match with and whatnot. I mean, did you have such a person at the Monster Factory now?
No, actually, unfortunately, I didn't. I had a lot of guys that were already wrestlers, but they were what I considered independent wrestlers. There were no superstars that I could really look up to, but they trained me well. But I went to the WCW had what they called the power plant, and I started wrestling for them in 1995. Within a year of my actual training starting, and they had a few guys there that really taught me how to go from just doing moves to actually getting in there and telling a story and why we're actually there. Because doing moves is one thing, but actually getting in the ring and actually telling a story from beginning to end is what we do. And I learned from a lot of people at the power plant down in Atlanta, Georgia.
Now, once again, I'm sure the folks know that professional wrestling is that wonderful mixture of athletics and theatrics. What kind of were you always Julio Dinero, or was there a manifestation of anything else in there?
Man, I could go through a million gimmicks. Let me tell you the honest truth. When I first started wrestling, I just wanted to work. So I remember wrestling as the Crow from the movie, Brandon the Crow or whatever. Then there was another promotion who didn't want a Crow character. They wanted a Hispanic character, a bad guy. So I wrestled as Julio Sanchez. There was another promotion in another part of the country that wanted an Arabic wrestler. So I wrestled as Sheikh Ali Amin. And then in another town where I started realizing all this stuff is so separate, I started throwing names together that day. I wrestled as Chic Your Booty, which is the album title to a Frank Zappa album. So, at some point, and then it all came back to, then I wrestled as Julio Fantastico. But Julio Sanchez, the Hispanic character, the person that was more closer to me, is the character that ended up getting booked a lot more. So at one point, your name starts to gain notoriety, and then the other characters that were just fun have to just stop because people are going to recognize you and know that that's not you, So, and then I became Julio Dinero when I went to ECW.
Now, from the music video that we saw just a second ago, obviously there were some pretty big arenas that you've wrestled in. Of course, the ECW arena, kind of very, very well known amongst the fans there as well. But you also spent some time in WCW, and of course, everybody knows what the WWF was then, which is the WWE now. How long in these federations were you?
WCW, I went there in 1995, and I wrestled for about a year there. But my job at that point, since I was so what we call green, was to get thrown in there with guys who were 450 pounds, like the Earthquake, or Ming, who was the quote-unquote the toughest guy in wrestling. So they wouldn't even give me a chance. They wouldn't let me wrestle guys my size. They just threw me in there with big, scary behemoths who would just literally annihilate me. So I did that for a year, realized I'm not getting any better besides just getting lumped. So I went back on the independent circuit, and then actually started working with WCW again in 1997 for about a year, I'd say, and I got more competitive matches at that point. One of the guys who started running the show there, Terry Taylor, he remembered me from a year ago or a year and a half before that. He gave me more competitive matches, not just big, scary guys to wrestle. And then I went to WWF from maybe 98 till about 2000 and got a lot of competitive matches, did a lot of what we call dark matches where, the first matches on TV tapings aren't for television. They're just for the live audience. I did a lot of those kind of matches like that. And I wrestled in Madison Square Garden, MCI Arena, Baltimore Arena, Fleet Center in Boston, and, the Grund Arena in Cleveland, Ohio, or whatever. So, I've done a lot of stuff, and then ECW was a chance for me to actually be a character and be somebody within a promotion as opposed to just a guy you might see on TV or you might see at the arena. I actually got a name and got a character and got to do interviews and had exciting and meaningful matches, so to speak.
How did you you have some martial arts in your background? How did you develop your wrestling style? Obviously, we've seen some kicks and of course the always necessary body slams and whatnot. But
right.
how did you develop that your wrestling style that you use now?
You know what? I think a lot of my wrestling style is improvised. I'm not one of those guys that really studies wrestling matches. I'm not musically, I love technical music where musicians are very well schooled. But when I watch wrestling, I'd much rather see a Stone Cold Steve Austin, a Hulk Hogan, or a Rock. These guys are not great mat technicians or technicians at all. They're more so of really good characters. So my style is a mixture of getting my character across and also hard-hitting action, but I'm not trying to be the best wrestler, so to speak, the most technical wrestler. I don't want to show you that I know how to roll on the mat for an hour and a half or I know how to get out of every hold. So my style is more, I try to be action-packed, but I try to mix it up. Have some wrestling, have some high-flying, have some martial arts, and then have some punching and kicking and just straight-up aggression, So I try to mix everything in. I'm I'm not one-dimensional. I try to be all-dimensional, so to speak.
What weight class would you be considered? Or I know that different federations have different definitions of this, but what
I would have to say right now in the world of pro wrestling, I'd have to be considered a heavyweight wrestler. I'm about 220 pounds. I could easily be a light heavyweight if I dropped 10 or 15 pounds, but in my opinion, especially with the way wrestling is going today, unless you're in Japan or just trying to be an independent wrestler, you want to be a heavyweight. I mean, that's the only way to really move up in the rankings. So I'm going to try and put on a little more weight and move up a little bit.
All right. Well, we're going to take a look at one of your matches right here. Set this up for us. It's a match that you had with the with a very popular wrestler in Jerry Lynn. But of course, there's always the theatrics here. And you're coming out in the ring right now. And what's going on here? Where is it, first of all?
Well, this is in Cleveland, Ohio, and I am basically letting the fans know that what they're seeing is wrestling's greatest superstar. They're looking at an entertainer. They're looking at an athlete. Look at my body. Not everybody in that arena is built like that.
Are you actually throwing that gum?
I threw a piece of gum at somebody because I don't think he was appreciating my talents. And look at me go. I can dance. I can sing. I can do everything. That's my point. I am a professional wrestler. I am a professional athlete. But don't think I'm not an entertainer, because I'll get in there and do anything I have to make sure these fans get their money worth. You know what I'm saying?
I think they got to put a slicker back on.
Yeah, he knew better.
Right. I mean, how much do you put into this interest? I mean, is it just are you improvising here? Do you have certain gestures that you make?
Well, basically, I make sure I come out to something rhythmic. You know what I'm saying? And I come out and I do a little strut more than a dance, so to speak. You know, and I basically let the fans know that they're not looking at just some one-dimensional, no-faced guy who's going to go out there and just get in the ring and wrestle. This is not amateur wrestling. Yeah. This is not just a sport to me. This is entertainment. So when I go to the ring, the second I come through the curtain, I'm there to make a show out of it. Because my opponent may not, and that's just the bottom line. Your opponent may just come to the ring and walk to the ring and get in there and think it's a job. But for me, it's a job the second you walk through the curtain, not once you get into the ring. So my job is to basically keep their attention, you know what I'm saying? Make them stop eating their popcorn, make them stop talking to their sister or their brother or their friend, and realize what they're seing is entertainment.
Here comes Jerry Lynn now. Obviously, he's a crowd favorite. A lot of people know him from the WWE. But do you normally play the heel, as it were, meaning that the bad guy?
No, not actually. I actually will do either or, depending on where I'm at and who's the more popular wrestler. Tonight, in this match, you're seeing Jerry Lynn. From his also ECW experience, I think he was former TV champion, if not a heavyweight champion there. He's been around a little bit longer than me, and he's also a technical wrestler. Right. So my point is, I'm not going to out-wrestle Jerry Lynn. I'm not. My style is not to out-wrestle anybody. I'm there to find a loophole in their style. If you're a wrestler, I'm going to fight you. If you're a fighter, I'm going to wrestle you. If you're both, I'm going to go to the martial arts. If whatever it takes to win, I'm going to find your weakness and find what you're not. So my point is, I went out there to not be him, basically. And that's why I attacked him in the beginning, because he tried to show me up. He tried to tell the fans, hey, look at me, I'm somebody special. Well, if you're special, then take that elbow to the face and prove to me that you can get back up and be somebody, because look at me, I'm the one standing, and he's the one laying there, sucking wind.
All right, well, the match obviously getting started here now. Oftentimes, I see these punches here. I mean, in this, it's amazing. These guys, and even yourself there as well. You're not leaving that ring bleeding all the time.
Well, I mean, I'm not punching him in the face either. I'm going for the forehead. I'm not trying to leave a welt all over his face and make him the ugliest man on earth. You know what I'm saying? Chances are, if you're a wrestler, you're already pretty ugly. So we're not trying to pretty much disfigure each other. But we're gonna lay it in. We're gonna hit each other. We're gonna make sure we know we're there. And I, obviously he's getting the advantage on me right now. But you got to understand something. I went out there and danced before I came to the ring. I went out there and worked with the people, so I might be a little tired at this moment, you know what I'm saying? He just came out and slapped a few hands, and he's got a little bit more of the upper hand as far as cardiovascular at this point, but believe me, I don't do cardio for nothing. I'm a true athlete. I'll come back. Just give me a moment.
How much cardio do you do?
I do about a half an hour a day after about an hour and a half in the gym actually lifting weights. And I try to go pretty heavy and pretty hard. He's got me. I'll give him that. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he's got the advantage. He's Jerry Lynn. He is an experienced wrestler. He's probably been wrestling for about 12 or 15 years. So he's got me on experience, and he's been in there with guys that are unbelievable. I mean, he's been in there with all the best. He's been all over the world. So, I mean, he definitely has an advantage. But there you go. That's crafty. You see that double reverse, throw him through the ropes, let him take the floor out, get out of the ring, hit the floor, see how that feels. I think now we're going to find out who the real professional wrestler is in this. Uh-oh, I forgot. I shouldn't have said that.
I mean, obviously, I mean, there's a strategy involved with each and every match that you go into, but...
Now watch this. See, I found a weakness right there. Grabbed him by his tights, Hey, if he was naked, I wouldn't have been able to grab him there. Threw him right into the ring post. The ring post is the hardest thing out there. So if you're going to win, hey, I might have to be a little dirty, but it's either me or him. It's do or die. It's all or nothing. The point is, I found an opening, I took it, and I'm going after it.
People on TV see these mats bounce a lot, and the speculation is it's kind of like a trampoline. It's the furthest thing from that.
It's not a trampoline by any means. It's actually wood, and it gives because as you go from one end of the ring to in the middle, it'll give a little bit, and then there's a mat over top of it. But, it definitely doesn't feel good. I mean, you wouldn't want to be body slammed, I can tell you that.
Okay.
And I just dropped a knee across his nose, and believe me, he's starting to feel this match. There's a right hand right in the top of the nose. At this point, I'm trying to win, and I'm no longer playing games with the fans or anybody else.
Now, do you pretty much know what an opponent's going to do? I mean, by this point in the match, for a few minutes in?
No, actually, I have no clue. I mean, at this point, you can call it improvisation, you can just call it an all-out brawl, but I have no clue what's going on. I'm trying to reverse it right here, and obviously I didn't get to. So I lay a boot to his face, and I'm going to charge him as hard as I can, and all of a sudden he puts one right up in my face. So right now, we don't know what we're doing, but there I go. I found right there, it's called a hip toss power slam, and I had him. I also used to call it the Moroccan roll.
Is that that's obviously a timing move. What kind of strength and what kind of technique are you using in a move like that?
Yeah, that's a lot of the hip flexors, and also it's a lot of the I forget what it's called, not the obliques, but right around here, the side of the waist. I'm not sure. It's the side of the abs. That's where you're really getting a lot of your torque from. It's kind of like in a baseball when you swing a baseball or swing a baseball bat. There's some of the stiffest forearms in the business. I'll lay them right in. I'll put an elbow right in your jaw. But obviously he didn't like that.
Man, that looks like that hurts. Even this one does.
Yeah, I don't think he really enjoyed the fact that I was laying him in there, but the fans need to be entertained. And that was a beautiful move. He almost won the match, but there's a kick to the head. And there's one of my martial arts kicks right there. Jalapeno popper, connected. 1, 2. Oh, I usually win with that.
Are you, at this point, are you getting frustrated with the referee?
Referee's an idiot. Referee's an idiot. No offense. These guys don't know how to count to 3 sometimes. I swear. And it's not like they're not educated. I just think they get all hyped up and they forget that they got a job to do. They're in all of me, you know what I'm saying? They're in all of our presence, and they forget. Look at him. I know how to count to 2. Look at him. I don't believe he does. And I don't think I'm very happy with him, but I really can't focus on the referee. I really have to get back to my opponent. Because Jerry Lynn, he may be down, but he's not out.
There's a couple things in pro wrestling here as you guys are slugging it out here, but
there's a rake of the face. Here comes a crushing leg sweep. I'll take him down. I'll cover him here. Watch. 1, 2. There's 3. Oh, the referee didn't see that. I'm sorry. I get a little hyped up. Watch him. And look, now watch what I do to this ref because I've had enough. This is not great sportsmanship, but I teach him how to count to 3. 2. Let's see if he can get. Here's a 3rd. There it is. Now I'm done with him. I've just told him count to 3, and now I thought I taught him something. 1, 2, 3. I guess he can count to 3.
I guess he's showing you that he understands, right?
Yeah, he's learned to count. That's wonderful. And unfortunately, I spent my time with him, and Jerry Lynn's making what we call in this business a comeback. He's got enough time to recuperate from all the damage I've given him, but I'm not quitting.
Another boot to the face here. How many really? The thing is that a lot of people just don't know really what kind of endurance it takes to really take that kind of impact and of course be running around the ring at the same time.
Well, we're 7 minutes into the match and I don't think I've taken a break yet. Between yelling and running my mouth, dancing in the ring, and having to wrestle this goof. He's basically going to break my neck if I don't get out of this. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm kicking. Goodness Lord, I haven't seen this match in a long time. How'd you guys get this footage?
We got some good librarians out there.
Look at this guy. Who knows how to do that? I had the body slam coming, and he slips out of it somehow with a side slam or some kind of reverse DDT. But you know what? I'm tough. Can you see that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And I'm getting to my feet as fast
We're going to
as
argue with him, right?
He's laying in a couple of kicks right to my midsection, but I got a six-pack, bro. I don't do abs for nothing. I got him now, see? Oh, wait, he didn't fall. Well, he took that punch. Here comes a shoulder block to the stomach. Okay, he's a crafty veteran. I'll give him that. He's crafty. Don't get me wrong. But look at him. He's the one on the ground.
Something that any video doesn't show are the bruises that you get after a match like this.
Yeah, I remember the match enough to know that. Hopefully I won. I hope y'all don't have footage of me losing a match. That would be ridiculous.
I hope we didn't find that.
Well, here it is. Look at the referee. He's counting me for some reason. Ow. What is that? He could count to 3 there almost, couldn't he? Oh, now he learned. There's the deadline, so to speak. That's what we call that one. Oh, I don't think he ever wanted to count to 3 when I was on the top. I'm getting frustrated again, and I really don't know what to do. I mean, if I hit him, I'm disqualified and I lose the match, and I don't get the winner's share of the money, nor do I get a title match later on. So here he helps the other guy win. But luckily, I roll through, grab some tights, and here we go. 1, 2, 3. I felt like I had to cheat a little bit because if it's 2-on-1, you got to do what you got to do. And I appreciate
So you admitted to cheating there?
I admitted to cheating, but I felt like it was 2-on-1. If it was an even Steven battle, hey, there's no need to grab a man's tights. I'll beat you. But unfortunately, I felt like the referee and him were against me.
I think the folks can see why you're one of the more popular wrestlers in the Indies and maybe even in a bigger show as well. What's coming up next for you? Where in the coming weeks, where can people find you?
Philadelphia, I will be at the legendary ECW Arena and Viking Hall. That will be August 31st. September 18th, I will be in Michael's 8th Avenue for Maryland Championship Wrestling. The show in Philadelphia will be for XPW. It's a national promotion. It's going to be my first time there, debut. And I mean, I wrestle up to 3 or 4 times a week, so I don't have my schedule in front of me.
Okay.
But I'll be on the road, and if you want to look me up, you can find me.
So hopefully we get him down here one day in Fairfax County. I want to thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And absolutely, that was probably one of the best shows we had yet. Okay, real quick, coming up, folks, next week, big football preview, myself, and we'll bring the boys back in here along with Brian Bauer, Greg Wyshynski, Dan Rubin of the Fairfax Journal. Well, it's going to be football, and of course, that's something else to get excited about. Also, in 2 weeks, the Bendorf Bench comes back here, right here on Channel 10. The Bendorf brothers, two of the best coaches in the northern region, will be right here. I can be one of the best hosts if I work at it as well. Once again, Julio, thank you very much for joining us here on the Fairfax Sports Report. We'll see you next time. Good night.